Hey, it's Barry Moltz, still getting your small business unstuck, and I'm very proud to lead this panel for Small Biz Aid. I have joining with me Rohit Bhargava, Tony Drockton, and Wendy Pearsall, all small business owners. Welcome to the panel.
Hey.
Barry?
So Tony, let me start with you. Tell us a little about Hammett and really what was it like those first few weeks during the pandemic for your company?
Well, we're a Southern California-based handbag line, distributed in all 50 states, mostly specialties, a couple of large wholesale partners, and we had a growing direct-to-consumer business. In the first couple of weeks, massive uncertainty, a lot of stress. We closed our only retail store in South Coast Plaza because of the mall. And we just said, so we focused in on the direct consumer, reconnecting with our fans, our largest wholesale partners, and our best specialties. And we just said to everybody, what can we do to help? And we asked for their support and help. And slowly by month 2, things started coming back.
You know, that's good to hear because we're all kind of panicked about retail. Wendy, you're in the Chicagoland area. Where were you when you heard that the governor was going to lock down everything?
You know, I think we were already home at that point because I had, you know, as the CEO, I had the luxury to just play it safe. Had I known, you know, how this all was going to play out, I think I probably would have gotten us home sooner. But yeah, I mean, I brought my team home before everything locked down, so a full week before.
So tell us about your business.
So I have a web publishing company, and we also publish children's activity books. So to the exact opposite of what happened with Tony, our sales tripled overnight with all these parents having to work from home and needing something to do for their children. And there was a point, probably 2 weeks after the lockdown started, 70 out of the top 100 books on Amazon were kids' activities books. It was just astonishing. So demand went up, but our productivity just tanked. You know, my team is not built for working from home. We've never done it. So I had to. It was a really difficult transition for them. I've worked in the home from home in the past, so it wasn't quite so hard for me. But at that point, I had my entire family, all of my employees, and I had a whole slew of freelancers. So I went from having 3 people to depend on me for their income to having 20 people depend on me for their income overnight. So
that's a lot of pressure.
Yeah, it was a lot of pressure. It was very difficult at first.
Rohit, one of the things you specialize in is really looking at trends. Were you surprised what happened in the early part of March, or you just thought, oh, this is another hiccup in the economy?
You know, once the announcement came out that everything was going to be closed, I think there wasn't a lot of surprises, right? I mean, when people can't go out, when they can't go to events and stadiums and stuff like that, of course retail's going to suffer. Of course stores are going to suffer. I mean, you could kind of paint the picture of what's going to happen as soon as things are closed and people are afraid to travel, they're afraid to go out. So a lot of the effect of that was, you know, what you would expect. I think the uncertainty came from like, how long is this going to last and how bad is it going to get? And you had people kind of on one side saying, okay, we'll go into lockdown for a month and it'll be kind of nice because we'll just watch Netflix and kind of hang out with our family. And we canceled a couple of business trips, which felt like a gift in some ways because we didn't have to get on the plane to do the business stuff. And then as it started to extend and the uncertainty went further and people started getting sick and we started knowing people who got sick and you know, tragically knowing people who died, which I don't think happened for people right away for most people. It kind of happened over time as it exploded, especially here in the US. Then it felt more serious. Then it's like, oh man, this is like, you know, we actually need to be afraid like health wise for this. And it doesn't seem to be getting better. And there's all of this back and forth from people who are just, you know, being led down this wrong path of kind of believing that it's infringing on their freedom to do whatever they want just to try and be minimally healthy, right? And so we've gone through all of those cycles, and I think they've affected how we do business, but it's also just affected our relationship to our work. And you know, Wendy was saying, which I've heard from many people, like this was a very new style of work for them. And for me, I work from home. I have a home office, and I've been doing that for the last 5 years. So the first thing that I did kind of as soon as this whole thing was announced is I said, well, I'm going to have more time to write because I was making a pretty large amount of my income from being a professional keynote speaker at events, which basically disappeared overnight. All the events were canceled. And so all the revenue went away. And so this business that was doing really, really well of me kind of traveling to 50 events a year, doing these talks, went to nothing, to zero. And so I all of a sudden had time to explore doing all these other things. And one of them was I wrote a book about how to be effective when working virtually. I did the whole thing in 6 weeks and then published it because like Wendy, I have a book publishing company, which is my other company in a totally different sector. So we focus on just business books. That's our publishing company called Idea Press. And so like her experience, I mean, that has gone up for us because a lot of people who write business books, I mean, they're no longer traveling, they're no longer doing their talks. And so they have more time to write.
Exactly. No, I know that for me, I'm finally getting my 7th book done. And you and I have talked about that. So Tony, a lot of stuff happened during this time, especially in retail. What are you most proud of the way that your team reacted? And what do you think in hindsight you could have done better?
Well, I mean, I got to say, going back to the beginning, what I'm most proud of is we had 0 staff reductions. So we said to ourselves, I actually have a lot of mentors, CEOs, founders. I talked to all of them and some went slash and burn the boats. That's what you need to do, Tony. No one's going to buy a handbag. And others said, you're going to need your best people to get through this. And you're going to need your best partners. And I went that direction. And I just said, what can we do to cut cash flow down? My executive team took a huge cut. My top leaders, 10 of them, took 40%. We took 70. I don't mind saying immediately. And we said, we'll bring it back if things come back. And everyone below, full pay, full work. I feel really proud of that. And what I found happened was everyone just worked harder. And the second thing is I'm really proud that our biggest partners all supported us. So luckily, we are in the fashion industry. We're women's handbags. I was told no one's going to take orders. Everyone's canceling them. I read all the press. All of my partners, the big ones, took every order, even while they were closed. And they stored it because I called them right away and I said, I need your help. We're not a big business, we're small. If you don't take the product that we've already made, that we already have to pay for from our manufacturer, the entire supply chain is going to lock up because I won't have the credit or the cash flow to keep going when you need product for the fall and the holidays. And if you trust me, we will work hard to make sure it sells through. So everyone said yes. It was amazing. And by the way, it worked out so well because I had a full team as we hit June, July, August, September, as stores opened up. My partners had a full supply of fresh inventory that they could sell at full price and full margin. And our fans showed up to buy it with our partners and also online. So it was a triple victory for us.
It's a great to hear a retail success story. So
Yeah.
with Wendy, your business actually went up. What are you proud of that you handled really well, and what do you wish you would have done better?
So I think maybe on a personal level, I always valued what it is that we do. But once I saw what kind of difference we were making, you know, in a time of crisis, I really understood what we do and how it's valuable to teachers and to parents and to children at a whole new level. I would say I was just really most proud of the fact that under all the strain, my first inclination was, who can I hire? How can I spread this around? How can I, you know, I'm the one who's benefiting here. I mean, there's others who benefited as well, but, you know, I didn't hoard it. I was like, I just called up every single freelancer I had ever worked with and said, do you need work? Because I'll give you some. And that felt amazing.
That's really, really amazing.
So, I would say,
on the other side, on the flip side, what would you do better?
Say that I probably signed up for some unneeded trainings, like maybe just let that money go a little too far. Because at that point it was a little tricky as to try to figure out, okay, we're in a whole new world. How do we expand further? And when I invested in this one training, it was helpful, but it didn't. You know, in hindsight, it was a waste of money.
So Rohit, as we go through these kind of disruptions, it always amazes me because it feels like it's musical chairs. And when the music stops during one of these downturns, we never know who's going to have a seat and who isn't, right? Who would have thought that RVs would be doing really well or bicycles doing real well? What kind of advice do you have for small businesses that really, really need to reimagine their companies? Where do you start if people are still stuck?
Well, I think one of the reasons people get stuck is because they've been successful. And ironically, the most successful people are sometimes the ones who are most stuck, because what worked for them is what they know. And even though they see the world shifting, like the human behavior that made them successful doesn't seem to have shifted that much. And so they don't really change.
Mhm.
And one of the things that I see in people who are really successful at doing that Silicon Valley thing that we call pivoting, right? Which is such a cliche to talk about what that is, but ultimately, to me, a simpler way of saying what pivoting is being able to change your mind, which is an underappreciated skill right now, or at least change your perspective. And so for me, what I see entrepreneurs doing really well that prepare them for success is diversify the way that they think about their business, the same way they might diversify their financial portfolio, right? I mean, most people know that they shouldn't take 100% of whatever savings they have and stick it all in the stock market, or stick it all in one place, or spend every dollar you've got on your house and not have any money saved up for anything else. I mean, most of us
All
kind
on
of know
black,
that.
on roulette. Just put it all on black, let the wheels
Yeah,
spin,
exactly, right? Like, we wouldn't do that in other parts of our life, but when it comes to business ownership, we kind of do that. You know, we put it all in one bucket and we say, this is what we're great at. And then the world reinforces that by saying, hey, you should do what you're great at. And so we end up doubling down on this one thing. And then something like the pandemic comes along, and all of a sudden it's like this big moment where we don't have anything else. And, you know, I think that what I'm proudest of in this whole situation that's come up is the fact that as an entrepreneur, I've invested time and effort in multiple things. So I have very good friends of mine who were making almost 100% of their income from speaking at conferences, which is a really risky thing to base 100% of your income on, because what's the thing that gets cut first from the budget when a company is struggling? Spending a lot of money on speakers at events, right? I mean, that's a relatively easy thing to just cut off the top line, even if there weren't a pandemic. So, you know, when you're basing your entire livelihood on the assumption that the good times are going to keep rolling, that's not a good way to prepare for it. And so, you know, just like I think Wendy and I have a lot of commonalities because we have such similar businesses, you know, we hired a ton more freelancers. We have an amazing internship program with 6 interns going right now who are all paid, who are learning about the publishing business because we've had such an explosion and we're able to bring them in. I mean, these are all great, amazing opportunities to be able to give work to people because, you know, especially if you're, for example, like a freelance writer, you know, you may not be great at sales. You're not a salesperson. And so you struggle sometimes because you're not great at selling yourself, but you're an amazing writer. And for somebody like me, who's always been a marketing and branding guy who, you know, I don't have a aversion to sales. I don't mind selling. You know, I'm fine with selling. And based on the business success, like, you know, I'm decent at it. And so if I can sell a project and then give work to someone who is great at writing, but not necessarily great at selling themselves, you know, that feels really good because you're bringing them work consistently and they can focus on what they love doing, which is generally not selling.
Yeah, no, I love it. You're like paying it forward. You know, Tony, one of the things that I always tell people when I talk about Hammond is how you reimagine your retail store. Because when LA shut you down, you said, all right, we're still going to use the space. It's really expensive. We're going to turn it into a virtual showroom and we're going to shop customers through there virtually. Tell us about that.
Well, we'd already been using Zoom and some very high quality broadcasting gear from a sister company that the founders started called DTEN.com. Been amazing. We picked up more hardware, more lighting, and we set our wholesale showroom downtown into a full-time virtual showroom for our buyers. And then we said, the buyers are loving it. Let's see if our fans would like it. So we sent an email out to our top 100, 82 of them booked 30-minute appointments within the first week, one-on-one, just to talk. Everyone was home anyways. It's still late March, early April. We found out from their feedback, they also wanted to pick up some of our new collection. And then we said, well, let's take and do our only retail store, South Coast Plaza, when it reopens. So we got it all set up while it was closed. We redesigned the inside. When it opened up, we were broadcasting from there and doing, clienteling. Now we're actually taking our headquarters, which we weren't going into. Everyone works in small pods, and we turned it into the Hammond House. and it's for small groups, 5 or less, small appointments. Plus, we also have virtual selling. We redesigned the entire place to be experiential, a la like a Soho house. And we already have events booked for when it's finished in middle of October. We did a test run in August, and we were sold out for 4 days. It's been amazing. So people still want to get together, I find. You got to find a way to do it virtually great or safely if you're going to do it in person. And it's great.
I love just how you've taken the assets you've had and figure out what else to do with them. So Wendy, this is not really your first rodeo. You've been through other downturns before. This time you're kind of in the upturn. What advice would you have for small business owners who perhaps are on the downside of this? You know, perhaps they own a restaurant or a bowling center or an event company, or they're a travel agent.
You're absolutely right. In the big Great Recession, we lost our house, we lost everything, lost our life savings. I mean, it was just kind of the exact opposite of what it is now. I would say, really to Rohit's point in terms of being diversified, that's a lesson that I learned early on. And gosh, is it just so crucial to a small business. I have found also, because now everything is online, I don't think this is going to change, that this is where you need to make your investments. And I would also say, because marketing and sales online is different than marketing and selling in person, because a lot of times you don't even get to interact with the customers, which is really hard for, you know, kind of more of these traditional businesses that we're talking about, is to invest in learning how to market online. It's a completely different beast. There's a lot of the same principles that apply to it, but like Tony's example, I just think that was such a great example of how can we take what we've done and turn it into something different online. And I think a great example of that is there's one restaurant in our town that immediately had their online ordering up and running. They had an app, they had their staff doing the deliveries, they had their menu pretty much everywhere. And there's another one, and I actually prefer the other one that actually closed down for several weeks, isn't doing any delivery, really has no online presence. And I know that they are struggling now, whereas the one who was willing to invest in the technology and I think that's the most important thing, making it easy for people to do business with you. So many people are intimidated by technology, and this is a permanent change. I absolutely believe this is a permanent change.
And I really
got to make it easy for people.
I agree. I mean, I think loyalty right now is really up for grabs. I mean, I've been traveling on one airline for 40 years, but now since they're not keeping the middle seat open, I'm now going to another airline after all this time. So, Rohit, this conference is really for large corporations that are trying to help small business owners. What advice would you have for large corporations that really want to help their small business clients?
Well, I think the first one is probably much more logistics oriented, and I think Tony had a great example. I mean, keeping the contracts you've already got with the small businesses that you're working with, paying them on time, or maybe even early. I mean, they're not sexy, but they're important. And I think that those are some of the early things that those large companies can do. But I think beyond that is sort of an opportunity across the board, whether it's a large company or a small company, to reimagine how you do what you do, which was a great point that Wendy made. Like maybe you need to go more online, maybe you need to, grow your business through the online channel. And that is definitely important. The other piece of it is, what if you could sell the exact same thing to a totally different audience? And I think that's what's happened now as well, because you have people adopting behaviors that they would never have done otherwise. People who ate out all the time have started cooking. People who traveled all the time have started taking road trips locally. I mean, these are entirely new segments of people who were never an audience for you before. I would probably have never gone on a local holiday to a local beach town because I spent 5 years living in Australia and became a humongous beach snob. And so now living on the East Coast, I don't call anything that's on the East Coast of America a beach because I was used to Australia, right? So I would never have done that otherwise, but now that's my option. And so here I am going on a local beach vacation to the East Coast. So, there's so many more of those opportunities where people who would never have been your customer before are changing their behavior. They're changing the way that they see the world. And so it's opening up maybe more market segments, whether you're a small business or a large business. And so I think the opportunity for small businesses, reimagine who your customer is, because it might actually be wider than it was before. And for large businesses, maybe partnering with some small businesses can help you reach segments that you would not have otherwise reached. And so there's an opportunity there to partner.
One of the things that I saw that I really liked was one of the very large corporations, they put together a community exchange, Rohit, among their small business owners. So if someone needed this skill or this service, they could trade with somebody else or whatever it was. And I thought that was great. They were trying to share their ecosystem. And Tony, you've mentioned that you're really happy with what happened with the large retail chains. They really treated you well, and I got to believe that's going to make you really loyal for the future.
Yeah. There's a lot of different department stores out there. I won't pick and choose, but I can tell you the strongest ones are the only ones we were in, and they're stronger now. The ones that we didn't choose to partner with are the ones that went the wrong direction, I think, and they're closing or they're in bankruptcy or they're half the size. So it's interesting. The large partners that forced down everything they thought they needed to do to stay in business are the ones going out of business. And the large ones that said, let's partner, not just to me, but to other brands, are expanding or actually profitable and doing well. And that's the way it goes, man. It's old school business, right? It's relationship. And that's how we've always, in our 12 years, honestly, Barry, thought we were partners, relationship driven. And I found that it's really paid off. I mean, we're year over year substantially higher in revenue than last year. Wow. We're also more profitable. And we also have chosen almost exclusively not to discount, not to do heavy promotion, and not to offer that to our partners. So that's pretty incredible. As a handbag line, I did not think that we would be here 6 months ago.
Tony, what advice do you have for all those businesses that are having conversations, let's put it like that, with their landlord? Because I saw a statistic the other day that a large percentage of commercial rents are not being paid in full. What should that conversation be like?
Well, I heard the CEO of Lululemon recently said they paid all of their landlords on time and in full. They're doing great as a brand, and he felt that would pay off in the long run with better locations. I think depending where you are, if you're struggling, you're going to have to see if your landlord will work with you to get through. But if you're doing really well, I just think it's completely unfair to use this pandemic for leverage to save some rent. I mean, that's the opposite of building a relationship. So I think it's individual, but if you are hurting, look for help. And I've found we looked for help early. South Coast Plaza, amazing, #1 mall to be in. They were like, yeah, what can we do? That's why most of their stores are open. And then after we reopened, Barry, our revenue day to day has been higher than it ever was last year for the same time, which is also incredible with way less traffic. So, the landlords that did work with tenants are also seeing their customers come back in, and they're seeing stores reopened, and they're seeing choices, and it's a win-win-win all the way around. So you have to ask if you need it. Don't you dare ask if you don't. That's just not cool. That's my advice.
I've been amazed. I mean, a lot of people think that in-person retail is dead, but I live off Michigan Avenue in Chicago. The stores are boarded up because of violence and looting, but people are still lining up outside to go into the stores, even when they're all boarded up. And so I think there's a future there. So Wendy, what is your outlook over the next year? Because we don't know when this is going to end, right? It lasted 3 years in 1917. If you look at trends, Rohit, with the Spanish flu, maybe we've got another year with this thing. What's your outlook?
It's I really don't know, because even though things have been really wonderful for us so far, it's gotten noticed and the competition is already coming in. And I've already had big publishers reach out to me to say, hey, we see what's going on in the children's space because all these parents are home with their kids. And I used to be kind of a big fish in a smaller pond. And the pond is getting bigger every day. So I don't really know. I know that we need to get better with distribution. I mean, most of our stuff is just online sales. But at the same time, our margins are going to start getting thinner. We are normal for a book launch. we spend a certain amount and the book kind of gets established on Amazon. I'm twice that for my last book, and it's still not established the way it normally would be, because the space is so competitive. But I do think that once we get to the other side, and I'm not going to say if we can ride it out, because I don't think it's an if, I think it's a when, we're going to be a stronger company. And that's just going to have to come from tightening up the margins, going back to basics, maybe hiring some more experienced people, because a lot of the people that I have are more mid-level. I'm probably going to have to hire somebody higher level. But I'm also going to pray that that big pond doesn't turn into an ocean.
Rohit, what is your outlook of what it's going to be like a year from now?
I think there's some, look, I pay a lot of attention to cultural shifts, right? So when I talk about a trend and I do trend prediction, and I actually teach people, like one of my keynotes is called How to Predict the Future, which is kind of a overpromise intentionally, right? Because of course we can't predict the future, but what I try and teach to people is if you can pay attention to what I call the accelerating present, if you can observe the accelerating present, you can start to see where the patterns are going to go. And that's really the skill set that I try and teach. And if you start to do that and you pay attention to the stories and you pay attention to human behavior, there's a couple of things that become apparent. One is this is not going to last forever. It's never lasted forever in the past. It's not going to last forever now. At some point, people will start emerging, workplaces will start to reopen, and we'll be able to get back. Now, I don't know when that will be. It's definitely going to be different at different times in different places around the world. It's not going to be, we flip a switch and everywhere in the world, all of a sudden people start going back to work, right? So if that's going to happen at some point in the future, I think the useful exercise is to start to think about, well, what is our relationship to work, and how is how our lives going to be at that point? So as soon as that happens, like let's say that happens in March of 2021. As soon as that happens, everyone's going to, if they have a workplace to go to, they're going to go to work right away and they're going to love it for 2 or 3 weeks because they've been stuck at home and they haven't been able to socialize with their colleagues. And just the idea of getting in a car or getting on a train and commuting to work and having the normalcy of that is going to feel amazing for a certain honeymoon amount of time. Whether it's 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 4 weeks will depend on the person. Once they get through that honeymoon time, they'll realize, you know what, commuting every day to work kind of sucks. It's a time suck. And I spent months and months and months not doing it. Why would I want to do that to myself all of a sudden, all over again? And pretty quickly, within, I'd say a month or two, people are going to find a different hybrid solution for themselves. I go into the office twice a week. I go into the office 3 times a week. And the other days I work from home and I actually do real work. And as soon as that starts to happen, some of the things that we're struggling with right now will no longer be issues, right? If I'm going physically to the office 3 days a week, there's no need for me to have Zoom meetings all day on the day that I'm home, right? Because I can have those meetings when I'm in the office with everybody there. So this Zoom meeting fatigue thing won't happen anymore because when I'm at home, I'll actually be doing work. I won't be sitting on Zoom the whole time, trying to dress up the upper half of myself to look presentable, right? Like I won't bother with that. I'll just do the work I need to do and I'll go into the office for the meetings. And so that whole dynamic starts to shift because if people start going into work 3 days a week and you have a restaurant that's in a busy place with lots of office buildings, do you need to open every day? Do you only open certain days a week? And then does there create this kind of ecosystem where people say, okay, if all the restaurants are open on Monday, Wednesday, Fridays, those are the days when our offices will be open because everybody will be in on those days. And then the other 2 days are kind of ghost towns. And that becomes the new reality, right? So these are the sorts of shifts that I think we can predict to some level what the human behavior is going to be. And then we can start to think about like, okay, if that is the new version of how we work, and how we spend our days, then what does that mean for my business?
Well, I personally am looking forward to getting back into a pair of pants. Right? I just really
as I'm sure are the people around you looking forward to you doing that too. So
Rohit, where can people get in touch with you if they want more information about what you're doing?
So I have a personal website, just my full name, rohitbhargava.com. I do a weekly email newsletter off of that, which you can just subscribe to either from there or nonobvious.com/subscribe. It's the most interesting and non-obvious stories of the week. And I do a weekly show on LinkedIn and YouTube every Thursday at noon Eastern as well, where I interview fascinating people about lots of stuff.
Thanks so much. And Tony, where can people learn more about the fabulous Hammond handbags and your amazing success you've had even during this pandemic and shutdown?
Barry, you're too kind. HAMMITT.com. It's also just TONY at Hammett.com. Or look for me. I live in the field. So I spent the last 12 years in most of our retailing partner doors. I've just got back from 2 weeks on the road. So if you ever want to know where I'm at, email me. I'll tell you. I'd love to see you in one of our partners out there or on the road.
You're right next to Where's Waldo, right?
Exactly. Where's Tony?
Wendy,
how can people get in touch with you and learn about your success?
So we have all our kids' activities at woojr, WOOJR.com. And if you look for our books on Amazon, all you got to do is look for WOOJR, Woo Junior. We're pretty much everywhere.
Thank you, Wendy. And thanks for everyone for joining us. This is Barry Moltz. We hope you enjoyed the panel of how to reimagine your business. Thanks for joining me.
Barry!